Hi everyone, this is a short tutorial that I wanted to make just on how I do hand-painted trail textures. This is definitely by no means the only way that you can do this, and no, definitely not the best or perfect way to do it, but it's the way that I like to do it, and it's the way that I've found some success in doing it. So I just wanted to show how I do it and how I do hand-painted trail textures, something that you could then create an effect like this. So this is a simple particle system I've made in Niagara. Don't know why I said it like that. Niagara in Unreal Engine 5. And yeah, it's just a ribbon renderer with a material that I'd already made, which just has some basic controls like multiplying by a second texture and then some slight distortion. But that's not even actually being applied here. So it's just a very simple texturing work with just a color curve over it, like a gradient map essentially from Photoshop. Um, and yeah, I just wanted to go over my painting process for hand painting because I see a lot of tutorials for Substance Designer and making it there, which are brilliant, but not much about actually how I go about painting one. So this is the kind of thing that we're going to be looking at today. So this is the texture that's being used in the effect that I just showed you. Um, this is the very simple texture. It's very straightforward. I've got a pattern preview turned on in my Photoshop, so if you go to view pattern preview, this will just tile your textures forever. I think this was introduced in like Photoshop 2020 or something like that. So if you have a latest version of Photoshop, you should have this. I think Krita also has this functionality. I don't actually know what it's called. If you're using a different software, I don't know. But Photoshop and Krita, I know, have this pattern preview or tileable textures feature. Um, and what I've got in Engine is basically that texture, and then a secondary texture behind it, which is just very simple, and it's just this, and then it's just like the opacity lowered quite a fair amount. And I'm just going to go through the process of how I painted these. I did another one earlier actually when I recorded this tutorial for the third time, and accidentally didn't record anything. But yeah, this is the theory. As you can see, this is incredibly messy. Like the actual texturing is very messy. But this is not about getting something perfect. This is just about demonstrating the kind of process. So to start with, you can either paint horizontally or vertically, depends how you like. But the crux of it is that you're going to want to make sure that you are painting kind of centered around this central focus line. So you can see like imagining there's a line down the center, all of your motion can come off of that, but it should kind of always come back to this central point. So that's something to try and bear in mind, just to make sure. You might find that your textures are wobbling too much, or they don't really like stay in the middle. That might be why. That might be what's happening. Um, so the way that I kind of like to approach these is to think of them in each of the little wiggles. And as you can see, I quite like to have many wiggles in the same texture because you can always choose to tile it less times. But if you've only got something like this, you've only got one, two, and then, this is the same one from before. So you haven't really got much to work with. So I choose to have many more, and then you can just, like I said, choose to tile it less times in Engine, and then you've got something out of it. But yeah, so I have the as many wibbles and wobbles as I like. Those are the official terms. But the way that I like to approach getting the most kind of intrigue out of them is to go for this concept of like big, medium, and small. So you'll notice all of these have a variation in the actual widths that they have, so the distance between the actual edge of the screen. And the reason why is just because you'll then end up with more variation in your final version, like in Engine, because you have more of like a visual intrigue per wave. And I could even make this better. I could maybe sorry, my OBS froze. Okay, yeah. So you basically kind of want to get as much variation as you can between all of the actual points that you have on your wave, so that you end up creating difference in every single stroke. Now you could probably take this even further, actually, or honestly, my distance between my waves is probably not the best. Like that distance from here to here it's about the same. Those are better because they're closer, so it's smaller, but then this one is about the same distance again. That one is smaller, so that's a little bit better. But they're kind of equally spaced, like along the page, each wave. So it could be better, basically. But it depends on what you're going for within your texture. It depends whether or not you want to make something look like really organic and very different every kind of oscillation, or if you want to make it look very repetitive, or like it's like a consistent motion. So this would be fine for that. And like I said, you can choose to paint it, horizontally or vertically, depending on what you need for texture. You could also choose to show your guides and actually use this central guide as a point to kind of focus your attention to, so you're making sure you're always staying on that central point. But that's pretty much it in terms of like the theory. It's just a case of wanting to make sure that the texture is going to have enough variation within it to make sure it's kind of, you're getting your bang for your buck out of the texture space. And as far as actually painting it, now if I just take this to a really low opacity, it's actually very, very, I don't know, stupid. But I kind of just, oh, that one went too far. Oh, that was a bad one. Okay, let's try again. Let's do something simple. Okay, now so we've got this. So this end bit could kind of be a little bit better because it doesn't line up very well. But let's say that's our first line. And then all we do is we just do another one. So this can kind of be, this can kind of be as messy as you'd like it to be. Doesn't matter if they kind of cross over each other, as long as they just end up back together at the end. And the reason why is because you now have a ribbon, and you've got ribbon with different varying like thicknesses, like the actual these parts here. They're really pretty thin. You've got these bits here that are pretty thick. You've got these droopy bits which are much thicker. These ones are even thicker again. And because of the fact that we've not got these this kind of perfect flat ribbon, it's already kind of got some shaping to it that makes it easy to get the idea of whether or not there's one side or another. So if we just take a brush and we just decide, okay, it's twisting over like so, and then folding back over itself. So now we're on the underside again, and then this one's folding over. And then maybe this one's the back. Oh, I suppose I've done that the wrong way around, but it doesn't matter. Let's just do this for simplicity's sake. Just to indicate what is the surface and then what is the side. So imagine if this is a ribbon. The ribbon has a certain element of thickness to it. So we're just trying to get across that thickness and then define where the edges are, because then the edges will read more clearly. And then I suppose, yeah, that under the side there. And then we bring this down. And it's probably already starting to be a little bit visible, but we've got this very, very clearly identifiable, two sides of the ribbon. Even if it's not really perfect, it doesn't actually have to make logical sense. It's just art. It's just fun. But you're starting to see like what I mean. And beyond that, you can go in and add as much detail and style, like actual styling to the texture as you want. You could make this very soft. You could bring in some darker gradients, like in the crevices, so it makes it kind of feel like it's shadowed within itself, like it's more 3D, especially on the ones that are kind of on the back face. And then also this will translate into how it then is textured and looks in Engine as well, depending on what your shader you've done. But let's just assume we want to make something that's a little bit soft and textured like this. And then we'll just add an outer glow. No, wrong one. We'll just add an outer glow to the main texture, just so that we've got something there. And as you can see, that's pretty much it. Like, it's the same thing that we had before. Like the first one I made, I just spent a little bit more time on having like specific details where I wanted them to. And what you could do also is at the end, if you want to make your edges still quite defined, you go back in with a lighter brush and go specifically just over your edges. They don't have to necessarily be like white because we still want to get this sense of like a back and a front kind of thing. But even if you just add some soft detail in just to help the edges stand out when it comes to the actual ribbon inside of Unreal or in Unity or whatever game engine you're using. It doesn't really matter. That's not the main focus of this. But it just helps kind of make the edges stand out a little bit. And you could blur this out, or you could smudge it out, or you could do this whatever you want. You could paint whatever you want. But that is pretty much the crux of it. Now, if we just save this, and we'll save it. That's another one. And then we'll come back into Engine. So, we're back here. We've got our previous textures that we've made. This is the one I made before, and this is the one I made earlier, and that's the other one. And we just want to import the next one. And here it is. So if we then open up our material, which is here, and then we go to, this is the texture that we first had. As you can see, this is the shader I had previously. Ignore this because I haven't actually organized this correctly because I'm just doing it for fun. But then we've got this texture there, which you can see there. Maybe if I just crank up oh wait, no, I don't have it, never mind. And then this is the other one that I made, and then this is the one that we just made right now, this 04 one. And if we move back to our particle system, here it is in action. And we've got this kind of dynamic, swirly, swooshy effect to it. And like I said about adding in as many more waves than you need, you can always choose to tile it less. If you choose to tile it less, you've then got more of a this is also moving at the same speed every time, so it's more volatile and it kind of looks more I don't know, crazy. I've also got it scaling over time within the ribbon, and I've got some like a sine wave on the velocity, so it's going up and down a little bit. But you could then choose to tile it more, and then it becomes a much longer, more noticeably, like, you can start to see the repeating pattern more. But just by having it slightly less, you don't really notice that as much, and you still get a lot of kind of dynamic motion to it. And if you can see, I bring. Oh, I know, because I've got it in the material. But if I turn off scrolling, I don't know if you can quite see, but you see on the edges, we've still got enough detailing because we went back in and then painted over the edges so it's white. So the dissolve is happening in the middle, like in the body of the ribbon, but we've still got a nice kind of clear defined edge per se. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's very simple, very straightforward. Like I said, this is just the way that I choose to go about doing it. And like I said, for the other texture, it was largely the same kind of logic. For this one, I think I just painted in a bunch more. So rather than just having those two guidelines, like you can kind of see them already maybe in the texturing. But I started off with like my two main lines like this, because that was like my main shape that I wanted to have, the body of it all. And then within that, I came in and I just did something like this, and I did something like this, and then I did something like this, and then another one that came in like that. And this was just to kind of define some zones so that this bit could be darker, that's lighter, this could be darker, this could be lighter, this could be darker, this could be lighter, this could be lighter, this could be darker, and whatever. And then from there, you could use something like filter noise median just to kind of blend some of those shapes out. You could just blur them if you wanted to. You could do whatever you want. And then, like I said, with the smudge brush, you could then bring in some of those details, like more paintery kind of details, and break up the shapes a little bit using the smudge brush. But it's all kind of whatever, depending on what you want to go for, like art style wise. This is just more so the process, but this was literally it. This is all I did to get those two textures. Obviously, I didn't paint them black because those wouldn't have shown up at all. But then, you go in and then softly gradiate these bits out a bit, so that you get more kind of like soft shadows, and then go in with some highlights. And then you could build this up however you want to, but there is a trail. This is a completely usable trail, and something you can do as well is that if you add in these kind of like softer gradients like this, you can then always go in afterwards and use a levels curve and then actually bring your values down a bit. Well, crunch them together a bit so that you're not having as much like dark, in case you're getting it into engine and then you're like, wait a minute, it's only appearing like this, and it's because there's too much black in the texture or something like that. You can just edit it on the fly with this, but this is basically a visualization of how it's going to dissolve. So like that bit at the bottom there with the white, I'd probably want to blend that out a little bit because that looks bad. But yeah, that's literally it. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. It's mostly vibes, but you just have to kind of see it for yourself and see how it works, and use as many layer styles or just blends or blurs or stuff if you're not super confident with like painting stuff yet. And like I said, this is just for making this specific kind of trail. If you want to do something more styled differently, like fire or something elemental, maybe this isn't going to be right for what you need it for. But at least the concept of the big, middle, little, and small, as far as your detailing, that's something that can kind of carry over between any trails, because it's just all about creating the visual interest. So as long as you do something like that, that's pretty easy. And like as I did with mine, I made this texture and immediately put it into engine. That's basically as fast as I would do texturing to start with, because you just put it straight in engine and decide whether or not the motion's working. Are you happy with the shape? Are you happy with the density, the thickness, the the number of repetitions that you have? Does it have enough variation within the texture? Because if you just do this, something super simple, get it in engine, test it, you don't spend a lot of time texturing and rendering something that you're then going to be like, wait a minute, this looks terrible. So yeah, highly recommend getting it into engine as quick as you possibly can. And just for argument's sake, just so you can see, like this is the trail, and it's just a ribbon renderer. That's it, just very, very simple ribbon renderer. And all I'm doing is adding some velocity with a sine wave on two of the axes so that it's just getting some variation. I could just turn those off and it will just be in a straight line. I'm also scaling the ribbon width over its life, but that would be basically just the texture scrolling on its own with nothing else to it. And it still looks pretty cool. I just only did that so that it kind of looked like it was coming from this projectile. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That's the whole thing. I hope this was useful for literally any human being in the world. And if it wasn't, too bad. I did it anyway. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions or whatever. But otherwise, good luck. Have fun painting. Don't come for me if you're like, oh, I could have done that better. If that's you, then go for it. Okay, thanks everyone. Bye.